Hey, so this is a TvP in the Silver League. Victorious TvP is taking over the universe. So I assume that you're going 1-on-1. I watched a tiny bit of the game and saw the factory early, and I was like, okay, this is 1-on-1. And then I immediately noticed that you didn't have a bunker, and was like, okay, I gotta stop, because you would just lose without a bunker to a zealot stalker poke or a double stalker poke. It's just, you know, I mean, obviously that's probably not very common in the Silver League, because watching your troops while macroing back home isn't something most Silver League Protosses want to do. But still, first stalker is always going to arrive at your base at 5 minutes, and if you don't start the bunker at 4 minutes or 4 minutes and 20 seconds, you won't have the bunker in time to stop the stalker, and then you'll have 3 Marines against possibly 2 stalkers if you went for the double stalker poke. And 3 Marines can't do jack against 2 stalkers, and you have no tank coming, only 1 more Marine coming. Like, he would just kill you. You would be dead. So, with this build, this guy's freaking me out. Why do you have 2 idle SCVs for so long? This is weird. But yeah, with this build, you need to start the bunker at 4 minutes. So make a Marine, make a second Marine, lift, land somewhere else, make a bunker. Or make 1 Marine and then lift and land and make a bunker. But point is, need that bunker, baby, need that bunker. So now your tanky is coming out, and still, basically until your first Banshee is done, you will die to anything unless you have a bunker. So this, I mean, super fast teching, think about it. If you're spending all your money on factories and starports, you can't live through an attack. So right now, in your base, there are 3 Marines and a tank. You would just die if he came. It's 6 minutes and 50 seconds. A 4-gate would have hit at 6 minutes. Like a super aggressive 4-gate. Obviously, a normal one would hit at 640 or something. But it's possible for him to hit you right now with 7 Protoss units. Hey, look, you have enough workers. Good work. But there's not one being built. That's weird. That's Simon in the background, making lots of noise because he's cool. So right now you've got $500 of stuff, and the biggest portion of it, $300 of it, or $275 of it, this tank, isn't even out yet. So you're basically, your entire army is 2 Marines. And if he came with 7 stalkers right now, and you had 2 Marines, you would die. So bunker, man. Bunker is totally key to this build. And often, what you'll want to do is scout with an early SCV, and if you see a bunch of Chrono Boost energy saved up on the first Nexus and you don't see the Expo, then you're going to want to throw down a second bunker. So in this case, obviously, you saw that he fast expanded, so you're not really worried about what he can come with. But even if you're not super worried, still bunker, because you have nothing. You have no units. That's the strength of this build, is that it doesn't make units. You know, you save all that money that most people spend on units, and you spend it on tech, and then you get this super quick Banshee. This is bad. Don't get siege mode yet. You don't need siege mode. You're getting siege mode for. As you noted before in your email, also you don't have your reactor yet. Oh, okay. Marines are like totally essential to this build. It's really just like any other build that I do. Your goal is to have a ton of Marines and a smattering of support, not to have a ton of support and a smattering of Marines. That doesn't work. Like, Banshee tank is not good. Banshee tank are great units for accompanying large groups of Marines, but you're not going to have large groups of Marines because you never got the reactor core. And now you spent $300 that could have been spent on 6 Marines on 2 more racks that also don't have reactor cores. What is it with you and not putting add-ons on your racks? This is the same problem I had last time. So here comes your Banshee harass. I kind of don't support the idea of harassing with a Banshee, because if you're a really good player and you can harass with the Banshee while not slipping on your macro, get a couple kills, and not lose the Banshee, then it's obviously very, very worth it. But if harassing with the Banshee forces you to miss stuff, let's see, I'm watching the production menu to see if you miss anything. Ah, you missed a tank. And Banshee didn't take any damage, and yet you walked away. That's kind of weird. You gotta realize a Banshee can take a heck of a lot of stalker shots before dying, so leave it in there until it's at least been hit. Anyway, look at your production menu. You're not making anything now. So having this Banshee up here is distracting you from what you want to be doing. You pushed out at too late, I would say. One of the primary strengths of the 1-1-1 is that you have the 1 or 2 tanks and 1 Banshee that you need so much earlier than with the 2-1-1. Simon, close the door, buddy. will go up and open the top door and then come down and close this door, okay? Because the door has to be closed eventually. Simon's scared of the dark, which, you know, all little kids should be, so no shame on him. So, yeah, you should have pushed earlier. You saw this nexus all the way back here. Basically, your goal should always be to push 3 minutes after a nexus, and you can delay that until 4 minutes or 5 minutes if that's how you roll. But you definitely don't want to push 7 years after a nexus. So he throws down a 4-minute nexus, so you kind of want to push at 7 minutes, but 7 minutes is kind of too early because you're not going to have stuff. So usually you'll actually want to wait until your first Banshee comes out and push with that. So you'll end up with 2 tanks and a Banshee, and you research Siege Mode as you push, because Siege Mode research is really quick, and the gas that you spend on Siege Mode is wasted until you push with it. So as soon as this first Banshee is done at 7.5 minutes, you're going to push across the field. You'll get there at 8.5 minutes. That's good. So push with this Banshee. So right now your army is marching across the field. Unfortunately, because of the way you did the build, without the reactor core, without prioritizing Marines, and with too much minerals wasted on these racks, your army size at 8 minutes should be exactly 2,000, and it's 1725. So you're basically throwing away $300 by making those racks, and by not getting reactor core. So again, at 9 minutes you wanted 2750, and at 9 minutes you didn't. You had 2350. So that's like $400 short. Again, you're pretty much always going to be $300 short because you're making 3 Marines at a time, which is what you'd be making anyway if you just had 1 racks with a reactor core. I mean, obviously you'd be making 2, but it's basically the same. So now it's at 10 minutes you wanted 35, maybe 4,000, depending on how many workers you cut. It looks like. So the idea is that you can afford 37 workers and $4,000, right? And $3,500, I mean. So you have 3275, so 33 plus siege mode is 35. So you have 35, that's good. You have 34 harvesters. So you're short 3 harvesters, which means that you can afford 3 more Marines, so you should really be having 3650 if you cut 3 harvesters like that. So it's okay. I mean, by this point, you've kind of stabilized to have a large enough army. But the big problem is that you have 5 siege tanks, 2 medevacs, and a Banshee, and almost no Marines. This is a bad composition. Like, I know that I said you want Banshee tank Marine, but Marines are the core of your army, bro. If you only have 17 Marines, you just can't get anything done. And also, you don't need 2 medevacs when you're so Marine light and you don't have stim for the medevacs to use their energy on. I bet by the end of the game, your medevacs are either going to be dead or going to have a ton of energy because they just can't spend very much energy. NRG. I used to think that was an abbreviation for a curse word, but it means energy, bro. Alright, come on. So you never want to be pushing out when you have $1,000 in the bank, first of all, because that just means that the way you did your build, you could have had $1,000 more of army. And the reason your money got so high is because you basically completely cut production as you pushed out, and that's bad. So let's see how this goes. My guess is that with so many tanks and 2 medevacs and not enough Banshees, you're not going to be able to force him to be scared and make stalkers. And then he's going to make useful things like zealots. So this Banshee's going to die. Got 5 probe kills. I mean, technically 5 probe kills is $250, and that's how much a Banshee costs, so it paid for itself. But in reality, you're expecting a lot more from that Banshee. You don't really want to suicide it for 5 probe kills. And also, there's something I've said a million times about, you never want to trade army for econ when the end of the game is nigh. Right? Because it's all going to come down to right now who has the bigger army. So if you trade $250 of army for $250 of probes, your army is shrinking and his army isn't shrinking, and it's basically like suiciding your Banshee, because those probes, they're dead right now anyway. You either win or lose right now, so the probes don't matter anymore. Also, you got to note that with siege tanks and Banshees, and you don't have Banshees, it's not the same as the way you use these SCVs when you have infantry. You want at least 1 SCV in the back repairing the tanks. And you don't necessarily need to tank with the SCVs. I mean, you can. You shouldn't be afraid to tank with the SCVs. But basically what you want to do is keep pulling everything back like you're doing here. and just let the siege tanks do the damage. And you definitely don't want to focus fire the Nexus like you're doing. You want it to kill the troops. Maybe it's not focus firing the Nexus, but it sure looks like it is. Alright, here we go. So at this point, you've both spent the same amount of money, but that's just because your opponent is kind of slipping on his spending too. He's got 1,000, 1,200. He's got 1,200 bucks in there that he hasn't spent. But look how these tanks start to kill your own stuff. Like boom, 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 killing your own stuff. So the problem in this game was that you were too tank heavy, too marine light. You didn't build bunkers. When you got this siege position, you should immediately have thrown down bunkers, man. Bunkers are awesome. And then you didn't have any Banshees. So you notice when you and I did the test map and we kept exchanging armies, what was really obnoxious from the Protoss perspective was that after the exchange there were Banshees left over, and nothing I have can shoot Banshees, so I have to warp in Stalkers. You weren't making Banshees. You made this tech lab, you made one Banshee, and then you just massed Medivacs. And the Medivacs, like I said, look at their energy. They haven't been healing most of the time. They're basically full energy. Not full like all the way to the top, but full like the same amount that they had at the beginning of the fight. Medivacs, you need one of them for sure, because otherwise you can't heal your Marines. But you shouldn't make 3 at all. I mean, if you're not getting stim, you don't need 3 Medivacs. So pump Banshees. Also, your gas should always be 0 because of the tank Banshee, and you shouldn't have a bunch of mule energy. I don't know that I like the second command center at all, because you're going to win or lose with that push. Nick likes to get the second command center, but I disapprove of the concept. Because building the command center makes your attack less strong. So what you want to do is change this build. I actually said to you that you should get the build to work against a very easy AI before you tried it against the opponent, and I still stick with that. You should not have come to the ladder with this build because it doesn't have a bunker early enough, and it gets a bunch of naked racks. You never want to be using naked racks in the long term. I mean, it's okay to use naked racks for a short time, but in the long term you want reactors. So you want 2 reactored racks at 10 minutes. You want 1 reactored racks at probably like 7 minutes. And you never want 3 racks unless you're really slipping on your macro, which you probably are, so it's okay to get 3 racks at that point. Also, when your money piles up, like right now, you're not going to use your buildings. So you should just try to remember that when I push out, I tend to forget to use my buildings. So don't, pay attention to that. Just remember, this was the mistake last time, so I'll make sure I don't do that. Queue up a bunch of units, spend all your money, Also, you probably forget to drop mules the entire time that you're microing your stuff. Also, your rally points are set inside your base. I don't like that. I would say rally to one of your tanks, and then rally your starport. Well, I mean, you should be making Banshees, but if you ever make a medevac that's rallied to a tank, it'll screw up your rally point because it'll go and pick up the tank, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know where to go now," and then they'll rally back to your base. So don't make that mistake. But yeah, you shouldn't be making medevacs at this point anyway. This should say 1 Banshee, 1 tank, 3 Marines constantly. It should always say that. And you're not making SCVs, you're not making Banshees, you're not making tanks, you're not making Marines. So yeah, bad. So I do feel like you hit the goal, the benchmark of 3,500 at 10 minutes, but could have done it better. And then the big problem is that you just didn't spend your money after that. Your gas is really piling up. And that'll happen a lot when you forget to drop mules, right? Because you had a $1,000 income right before the push. So let's look at the income tab. This is gonna be awesome. Okay, it's basically gonna be about 1,000, 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 about 1,000. I bet you it's gonna drop to 600. That's my bet, but we'll see. So now you've forgotten to drop the mule, and you've pulled some guys off, and now it's at 560. 540, 560. So you got half the income that you did a second ago. So you're pushing out and your gas is piling up because a second ago you had $1,000. So this is 125, 125, 125. That's 375 plus 350 is 700 plus SCVs and depots brings you up to 1,000. So you had $1,000 and you had a a capacity of 700 military, right? So at most you can spend 700 a minute of military, but usually you can't even, you'll miss that. So you'll usually be less than 700. So you had just enough production infrastructure to squeak by, but then suddenly your income drops in half, and now you have too much infrastructure. You got 700 ability to spend and only 500 coming in. So you don't have enough minerals. So you go to make a Banshee and you're like, oh, I don't have enough minerals for my Banshee. And then you go to make a tank, oh, I don't have enough minerals for my tank, and you just keep making only marines, pure marine, pure marine, pure marine, and this is silly. So what you need to do, first of all, remember to drop these mules, right? It's very important. I think that's entirely what makes up why you weren't able to make these tech units. Second, make the tech units first, and make marines with the leftover money. And I know that's the opposite of what I said about the early game, right? In the early game, you need to get one tank as quick as you can. You need to get one Banshee as quick as you can. But after that, you should be prioritizing Marines and then only making tanks and Banshees when you have Marines already queued up. But that's because with a $240 a minute income of gas, you have about 15 seconds in the production cycle of these two buildings where one of them has to be idle. So your goal should always be, in every build you ever do, get the appropriate amount of gas and then spend that gas, and then spend your leftover on your mineral dump. That's why they call it a mineral dump, is because you dump whatever's left over into these mineral things, marines, right? So tech first, marines second. Tech first, marines second. And you should find that you're able to constantly produce off of all of your buildings. So it shouldn't matter which one you do first. But when you don't have enough minerals, going marines first means that you're not spending your gas. So not only is your army size reduced because you don't have enough minerals to use all your buildings, but then it's doubly reduced because you aren't spending your gas. So, you know, it's always better to do your gas units first and your mineral units second. These mules, big deal. I feel like you probably would have won if you had been able to spend your money, even though you had 5 tanks. With the push, always bunkers, because your push, the strength of your push is these tanks and how long it takes him to get into range of them, right? So if right now you threw down a bunker here, a bunker here, a bunker here, or even after you pushed forward some more, throw down bunkers, boom, and I'm sure one of the reasons you didn't throw down bunkers is because your mineral income is so low because you're forgetting to drop mules. So you don't really have a lot of money to throw away on bunkers, but you should. This is part of why it's best to have the... So right now, he's got an army and he's waiting to hit you with it. And you know that, right? So you know he's got to attack you right here. There's no reason not to make bunkers. So yeah, totally bunkers. Totally bunkers, bro. Also, you want to focus fire the tanks on the sentries first, because sentries are extremely expensive and they have no health, and tanks can like totally crush them. So you never want a tank to be shooting a zealot. You never want a tank to be shooting a probe. Well, not never, but you know, if there's stalkers and sentries to be hit, those should be the first priority. So tanks do much more damage to armored, 50 damage to armored, 35 to not armored. So if you shoot a zealot with a tank, then it's you're throwing away 15 of its damage right away. Also, zealots are melee, so they're going to tend to be standing around your own troops. So not only are you doing 15 less damage to the bad guy, but you're tending to do about 50 more damage to yourself. So really bad. Never shoot zealots. Same deal with probes. Like I said before, probes don't count at this point in the game, right? If you're in a win or lose position, nobody cares how many probes you have. So you can let all of the probes live until every single one of his stalkers and sentries and immortals are dead. So never let your tanks shoot probes. It's just a waste. So you either want to be hitting stalkers, which you get a bonus of 15 damage to, and stalkers tend to clump up, so the splash will be more significant, or you want to be targeting down sentries. You never want to shoot immortals, obviously, but you know that should go without saying. So right now you want to be targeting your tanks right in this little pile and right in this little pile and whatever. So I mean that's a little thing. If you don't do that, you'll probably be okay. The big thing is the bunker. The big thing is having all this gas that you didn't spend. The big thing is, you know, your opening was kind of silly. I don't know if I even want to watch the rest of the game because I mean, with a one base all in, it's all in. You know, of course you're gonna lose if you don't win with it. That's how all ins work. This was really bad. You picked up to do a drop. You should never be doing a drop when you don't have stim. Drops without stim are stupid. And then he just kind of walks in and you push him away because Marines are totally awesome, but by this point he's spent an extra $2,200 over you. Your income is basically zero. He's got a huge income and you're doomed. Doomed. So none of this late game stuff matters. You were gonna lose this game no matter what happened in the late game because that push is so expensive. And I mean, that's why I don't really like getting the second command center, right? Is because there's no follow-up from this. If you don't win with that push or at least knock down his nexus, you're screwed. And if you do win with the push or knock down his nexus, then you're on even footing with him if you have one base, because now he has one base too. So getting the command center puts you ahead economically, but behind militarily. And if you're ever behind militarily, then he crushes your push and comes over and stomps your base. So, yeah, whatever. Rally your stuff to the attack. Get a bunker early, make reactor cores on your racks, remember to drop mules while you're fighting, don't miss production cycles when you're pushing out, make bunkers with your push, and emphasize Marines and Banshees over tanks. Marines and Banshees, Marines and Banshees, Marines and Banshees, and then you make tanks when you have extra gas that you can't spend anywhere else. And that is all.